In the 1950s, students, writers, and civil rights leaders appeared on blacklists as insidious as, if less notorious than, the government's blacklist of Hollywood entertainers. Students bore witness several times over to the government's extension of its tentacles into higher education institutions. What is more, universities brought students up on fabricated disciplinary charges because of alleged communist ties and expelled them. Their right to education destroyed by government overreach and accusation was not by actual evidence. For Black Americans and Chinese students in the United States, the McCarthy era was the reality principle, a time when fear dictated who could speak, study, and simply think out loud. But could history be repeating itself? Is Northern Ireland transitioning into the mirror image of America? I'm Kiana Canada, and this is Mimicking McCarthyism, an examination of an obstruction of justice, a whisper campaign circulated across a higher education institution in Belfast against me, and whether human rights on the island have become a mirage. Across the United States, academia's complicity during the McCarthy era was chillingly clear. Universities didn't resist the government's interruption, they contributed to it. Professors abandoned political clubs, students swallowed dissent, and the academy bent to the Red Scare's orthodoxy. Public criticism of power structures all but disappeared, leaving a generation more muted than free. But what happens when power silences truth in education, as we have seen? And how far has cooperating with state power traveled across the oceans? And when did it land its anchor on Northern Ireland's universities? For those watching this YouTube series, it's important to state that this series should not be taken as an incitement of hate, nor is it a call for violence on Catholicism or Irish Catholicism. Mimicking McCarthyism is not an echo of historical leaven rhetoric, much like what has been heard through the Know-Nothing Party of the 1850s. What I seek instead is understanding. Why has the Commission given up its independence and has placed its statutory duty in the hands of a toxic authority figure who does not value nor respect the right to education? To understand why the right to education is so important, it may help us begin with its philosophical components. Confucius believed that people are equal at birth and advocated for a system of education that is open to all. This is in stark contrast to the beliefs of the state agent the Commission loaned its power to. Under Confucianism, higher education is not simply about skills, it's about cultivating our conscience, building intellectual courage, and exercising our right to engage in critical inquiry. Under the Irish and American systems, the right to opine in higher education is filtered through the state's apparatus. But freedom of expression is the stanchion of academia. Without academic freedom, knowledge teeters on the edge of collapse. Human rights law recognizes the importance of this right. Under the first protocol of Article 2 of the European Convention on Human Rights, no person shall be denied the right to education. The European Court of Human Rights has confirmed this right extends to access, institutional recognition, and protection from arbitrary exclusion. But what happens when a third party with considerable power uses a list of unfounded, subversive accusations as substratum to raid a Belfast university? State-sponsored intimidation in higher education isn't merely unkindness, it's a legal issue. When a university aids a state official in its intimidation and harassment and abuse of a student, much like how Queen's University did in my case, it obstructs not just the student's equal participation in education, but also justice, undermining the core of Article 2, Protocol 1. Northern Ireland also enacted the Addressing Bullying in Schools Act, which came into force in 2021. The Act compels grant-aided schools, much like Queen's University Belfast, to prevent and record bullying incidents. They must also document each incident's motivation and outcome, a mandate grounded in human rights. Yet, despite this legal clarity, the Commission rarely references higher education bullying. Its 2023 submission to the Council of Europe's European Commission Against Racism and Intolerance acknowledges racist bullying among youth, but it remains silent on how university-level bullying manifests or whether state officials precipitated the incident. Why has the Commission, tasked with defending education rights, handed its power over to agencies with a history of racial oppression? Is the Commission a Potemkin human rights institution hollowed out from within? That is an important question, and perhaps we'll never know. In the same 2023 submission, the Commission highlighted inclusive education, but never defined it. According to QAA, inclusivity is essential in modern higher education. All students should have equal opportunity to succeed, regardless of their background, demographic characteristics, or current circumstances. The principle in Belfast should be inclusive education, not exclusion under authoritarian practices operating in the shadows. The omission is not trivial. Without a clear definition, inclusivity risks becoming decorative language, detached from enforcement or accountability. The Commission's missed opportunity. The Commission's abandonment, in my case, contradicts its own earlier advice on addressing bullying in schools, the bill, where it affirmed that bullying, whether in private or in public settings, should always trigger the state's positive obligations to protect educational rights. The Commission, under Section 69 of the Northern Ireland Act 1998, has a statutory duty to investigate such systemic issues, especially when they have strategic human rights implications. By ignoring the state-sponsored intimidation I experienced at Queen's University Belfast, especially being the only Black American on campus, the Commission failed the very obligations it exists to enforce. When state agents co-opt higher education institutions and universities like Queen's University Belfast, and when they aid and abet illegal conduct, and human rights commissions abandon their right to investigate, then the question becomes, is Belfast truly a democracy, or is it competitive authoritarianism? Later this week, we'll be discussing how Ireland maintains its grade aid status and keeps cases out of the European Court of Human Rights. It is an episode you're not going to want to miss. See you tomorrow.